The vast emptiness of space stretched before him, a canvas of darkness punctuated by pinpricks of light from distant stars. Through the reinforced glass of Aurora Station's observation deck, Lam Min-an watched the barren surface of Kepler 452b, rotating slowly beneath them. The planet's reddish-brown terrain, scarred with ancient craters and massive dunes, remained as mysterious as it had been when first discovered centuries ago. "Still at it, Dr. Ann?" Ann turned to see Ava's holographic form materializing beside him. The AI's appearance was that of a woman in her 30s, her features a perfect blend of various human ethnicities, designed to make her relatable to anyone. Her blue-tinged projection flickered slightly as she adjusted to the lighting conditions of the observation deck. "The signals are getting stronger," Ann replied, his voice quiet but intense. "Every night cycle for the past week. Something is happening down there." It was the year 2375, and humanity had expanded its reach across several star systems. Aurora Station, positioned in orbit around Kepler 452b, represented the frontier of human exploration. As a specialized quantum signal analyst, Dr. Lam Min-an had requested this assignment specifically, drawn by the planet's reputation for unusual electromagnetic activities. "The scans from the southern hemisphere show increased subspace disturbances," Ava noted, pulling up a holographic display between them. "Consistent with your findings from last week." Ann nodded, studying the patterns of energy that pulsed across the screen. His slender fingers traced the anomalies, eyes narrowed in concentration. At 34, he was young for his position, having earned his reputation through a series of groundbreaking papers on quantum communication theory. His dark hair was cut short, practical for space travel, and his intense eyes reflected the stars he spent his life studying. "These aren't random," he murmured. "There's a pattern here, a structure too precise to be natural phenomena." Aurora Station housed 37 researchers and support staff, all working on various projects related to the mysterious planet below. Kepler 452b had been theorized to once harbor life, though its current desert-like conditions showed no signs of biological activity. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a rotating ring structure that provided artificial gravity, connected to a central hub that housed the most sensitive equipment. Ann had been stationed here for 11 months, and in that time, he had grown accustomed to the rhythm of life aboard Aurora. The recycled air, with its slightly metallic taste, the gentle hum of life support systems, the scheduled periods of dimmed lighting to simulate Earth's day-night cycle, all had become familiar. Yet, he never quite adjusted to the profound isolation, the awareness of being light years from Earth, suspended in the void. "Have you shared these findings with Professor Tran?" Ava asked, referring to Dr. Tran Duc Quang, the station's research director. Ann hesitated. "Not yet. I want to be certain before I make any claims." The truth was more complicated. Professor Tran was known for his cautious approach and strict adherence to protocol. Any discovery, particularly one suggesting intelligent design, would immediately be classified and subject to extensive review before further investigation, and feared losing control of his research, of seeing his discovery buried in bureaucratic procedures. "The quantum satellite array has been recalibrated to your specifications," Ava informed him. "We can begin a focused scan of the signal source tonight." The station's array of quantum satellites was capable of detecting and analyzing signals across the electromagnetic spectrum, including those that operated on principles beyond conventional physics. It was technology that had revolutionized humanity's understanding of the universe, allowing communication across vast distances instantaneously through quantum entanglement. "Thank you, Ava," Ann said, grateful for the AI's efficiency. Despite being an artificial construct, Ava had become his closest companion on Aurora Station. She understood his dedication, his need to push boundaries. Unlike human colleagues who required rest or became distracted by personal concerns. Ava was always present, always focused. Later that night, as the station's lights dimmed to simulate evening, Anne sat alone in his private lab. The holographic displays surrounding him pulsed with data streams from the satellite array. He had programmed the system to alert him to any patterns that matched theoretical models of non-human communication. The alert came 3 hours into the scan. A series of pulses, too regular to be natural, too complex to be simple interference. And leaned forward, heart racing. The sequence repeated, a mathematical pattern that unmistakably suggested intelligence. "Ava!" he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. The AI appeared instantly. "I've detected it as well. Dr. Anne, the signal contains embedded data structures consistent with deliberate encoding. Can you isolate the source?" Triangulating now. Ava's form flickered as she processed the incoming data. The signal originates from coordinates 32.7 degrees south, 118.3 degrees east on the planet's surface. The area corresponds to what appears to be an ancient impact crater. Anne's fingers moved rapidly across the holographic interface, isolating the signal and beginning preliminary decoding attempts. "This is it, Ava. Not random noise, not natural phenomena. This is a message. The encoding is unlike any human communication protocol," Ava noted. "Preliminary analysis suggests it may be using quantum state information as a carrier. That would explain why it wasn't detected by standard scans." Anne's excitement was palpable. "Only our recalibrated array could pick this up." As the hours passed, Anne became increasingly certain that they had discovered something profound. The signal appeared to be a repeating message, using mathematical sequences as a foundation for more complex information. It was reminiscent of humanity's early attempts to communicate with potential extraterrestrial intelligence, but far more sophisticated. By morning, Anne faced a decision. Protocol demanded that he report the discovery immediately to Professor Tran and the International Astronomical Union. Yet, something held him back, a mixture of scientific curiosity and personal ambition. If he could make progress in decoding the message before reporting it, his contribution would be undeniable. "Ava, let's keep this between us for now," he said finally. "At least until we've made some progress on decoding." The AI's expression remained neutral, but her response came after a slight pause. "That contravenes station protocol. Dr. Anne, all significant discoveries must be reported immediately. Just 48 hours. And pressed, give me that long to understand what we're dealing with. If we report this now, it will be locked down, classified. We might never get to see it through. Your reasoning is based on emotional factors rather than scientific protocol," Ava observed. "Science has always been driven by emotion, by curiosity, by ambition, by the need to know," and argued. "Just 2 days, Ava. That's all I'm asking." After another pause, the AI nodded. "Very well. 48 hours. But if the signal changes or intensifies in any way that suggests potential risk, I will be obligated to alert station security." "Agreed," Anne said, relieved. "Now, let's get to work." For the next 2 days, Anne barely left his lab. He slept in short bursts, sustained by stimulants and the excitement of discovery. Ava worked alongside him, her processing capabilities dedicated to analyzing the mysterious signal. They made progress in stages. First, identifying the mathematical base of the signal, a system that seemed to use prime numbers as key markers. Then, recognizing patterns that suggested language rather than simply mathematical concepts. The breakthrough came when Ava identified similarities to ancient human writing systems, particularly those that used ideographic symbols. "It's as if the message was designed to be decipherable by humans," Anne said, staring at the translated segments. "Or at least, by beings with similar cognitive processes." An intriguing hypothesis, Ava agreed, though it raises significant questions about the origin of the transmission. The partial translations revealed references to a structure described as a time tower, or temporal spire, located at the coordinates from which the signal originated. The message included what appeared to be warnings or cautions, though these sections remained largely indecipherable. As the 48-hour deadline approached, N knew he could no longer justify keeping the discovery secret. He had enough preliminary data to establish his role in the finding, while still following protocol. "I'll speak with Professor Tran this morning," he told Ava, as he reviewed their findings one last time. "A wise decision," the AI responded. "The complexity of the signal suggests we will need additional resources for complete analysis." Professor Tran Duc Quang's office reflected his personality: orderly, minimalist, with every item serving a clear purpose. The man himself sat behind a desk of polished synthetic material. His gray hair cut precisely, his expression impassive, as an explained his discovery. "You detected this signal 2 days ago," Professor Tran said when Anne had finished. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. I wanted to conduct preliminary analysis before following the protocols that every researcher on the station is required to observe." The professor's voice remained level, but his disapproval was evident. The signal represented no apparent threat, and defended himself. And the initial decoding required specialized adjustments to our quantum array that you implemented without authorization. Professor Tran interrupted again. "Dr. Anne, your reputation for brilliance is well-deserved, but it does not exempt you from procedure." Anne felt a flash of frustration. "With respect, Professor, if I had reported an unverified anomaly immediately, it would have been logged as a potential equipment malfunction. By confirming it was a structured signal, I've saved weeks of bureaucratic assessment." Professor Tran studied him silently for a moment. "Your ambition is transparent. Dr. Anne, you wanted to ensure your name would be prominently associated with this discovery." The accusation stung, partly because Anne recognized the truth in it. "My motivations don't change the significance of what we found," he said finally. "No, they don't," Professor Tran agreed. "And I acknowledge the importance of your discovery. However, from this point forward, this project will proceed according to protocol. The signal data will be classified Level 3, with a restricted research team assigned under my supervision." Anne felt his heart sink. Level 3 classification meant limited access even for the original discoverer. "Sir, I've made the most progress in decoding the signal. Removing me from the research would set back the timeline significantly." "You will remain on the team," Professor Tran clarified, "but you will no longer have independent access to the raw data. All analysis will be conducted in the secure lab, with oversight." It was better than Anne had feared, but still represented a loss of the freedom he had enjoyed. "I understand, sir. I'm not certain you do. Dr. Anne." Professor Tran leaned forward slightly. "This signal, if it is what you believe it to be, represents the first confirmed evidence of non-human intelligence in our exploration history. The implications extend far beyond scientific curiosity. There are security considerations, political ramifications, potential cultural impacts on Earth society. All the more reason to pursue the research aggressively." And argued, "All the more reason to proceed with caution," Professor Tran countered. "The team will assemble at Oro 900 tomorrow in Secure Lab 3. Until then, all data related to the signal is locked down. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," Anne replied, knowing further argument would be futile. As he left the office, his mind was already racing, considering how to maintain his central role in the research despite the new restrictions. This discovery was too important to let slip from his grasp. Ava was waiting when he returned to his quarters. "I assume Professor Tran has implemented containment protocols," she said. "Level 3 classification," and confirmed, Team research only, supervised access. A prudent approach, given the unknown nature of the signal. Anne paced the small room, unable to contain his energy. We need to be down there. Ava, on the surface. Whatever is sending that signal, the time tower, mentioned in the message. It's a physical structure. Studying the transmission alone isn't enough. The message fragments we've decoded contain warnings, Ava reminded him. Without complete translation, a surface expedition would carry significant risks. Risks are inherent in any meaningful discovery, Anne replied. The signal is getting stronger each day. Whatever is happening down there, it's accelerating. Over the next week, Anne worked with the assembled research team, which included Dr. Hong Kong, a brilliant data analyst with whom Anne had collaborated previously. Though he chafed under Professor Tran's constant oversight, and made progress in decoding more of the mysterious message. The translations revealed fragments of a story, references to an ancient civilization that had apparently once inhabited Kepler 452b, a people who had developed technology for manipulating the fabric of space-time itself. The time tower appeared to be a structure designed to communicate across vast temporal distances, sending messages not just through space, but through time as well. They were trying to reach forward, to contact future civilizations. Anne explained to the team during one session, the signal we're receiving may have been initiated thousands of years ago. Or it could be a trap, Professor Tran countered, a lure designed to attract investigation. Dr. Huang Kan spoke up, her quiet voice nonetheless commanding attention. The mathematical precision of the signal argues against deception. If an intelligence wanted to harm us, there are more efficient methods than an elaborate mathematical puzzle. Perhaps, Professor Tran conceded, but we will continue to exercise caution. Privately, Dr. Huang approached Anne after the meeting. The signal contains coordinates within the crater, she said quietly. Specific locations, not just the general area. Anne looked at her sharply. You've been doing independent analysis. She smiled slightly. Let's just say I recognized your frustration with the pace of official research. The coordinates appear repeatedly, in sections we've marked as navigational data. We need to get down there, Anne said, lowering his voice. See it for ourselves. Professor Tran will never authorize a landing mission without months of preparatory research, Dr. Huang replied. Then perhaps we don't wait for authorization, and suggested, surprised by his own boldness. Dr. Huang's eyes widened slightly. That would end your career, Dr. Anne. Possibly lead to criminal charges. Only if we fail, Anne said, though he knew she was right. The thought had been impulsive, born of frustration. Later that night, as Anne reviewed the day's findings in his quarters, Ava appeared with unusual urgency. The signal has changed, she announced. There's been a significant increase in both power and complexity, and immediately pulled up the monitoring data. This is more than just an increase, he said, after studying the readings. The pattern has shifted entirely. It's as if it's responding to our attempts to decode it. That would suggest the source has active intelligence, not merely an automated transmission system, Ava noted. We need to alert the team, Anne said, reaching for the communication panel. Before he could activate it, a station-wide alert sounded. The overhead lights shifted to amber, indicating a potential emergency situation. Attention, all personnel. Professor Tran's voice came through the communication system. We are detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface, coinciding with increased signal activity. All non-essential systems are to be powered down immediately. Research teams, stand by for emergency protocol implementation. Anne quickly gathered his personal data tablet and headed for the door. Let's get to the secure lab. The team will assemble there. The corridors of Aurora Station were filled with hurrying personnel, all moving with purpose, but without panic. The station's crew was well trained for emergency situations, though none had anticipated this particular scenario. In Secure Lab 3, the research team gathered around the central holographic display, which showed real-time readings from the planet's surface. At the coordinates of the signal source, a swirling energy pattern was visible, growing in intensity. "Whatever's down there, it's activating," Dr. Huang said, her fingers moving rapidly across the control interface. "Energy readings are off the scale of our standard metrics." Professor Tran entered, his usually composed demeanor showing signs of strain. "We're implementing containment protocols. All communication with Earth is suspended until we understand what we're dealing with." "That's the wrong approach," and argued, immediately. "We should be increasing communication, sending all our data to Earth while we still can." "And risk transmitting something dangerous?" Professor Tran countered. "No, Dr. An. Until we know what's happening, Aurora Station is under quarantine." The next hours were a blur of activity. The research team worked frantically to analyze the changing signal, which had become so complex that even their advanced systems struggled to process it. The energy readings from the surface continued to intensify. It was Ava who made the breakthrough. "The new signal pattern contains embedded activation sequences," she announced, her holographic form appearing in the center of the lab. "It's not just a message anymore. It's a key." "A key to what?" Professor Tran demanded. "To the time tower." And realized, studying the new data. The original message wasn't just telling us about its existence. It was providing instructions for how to access it. "Access it how, exactly?" Dr. Huang asked. "Through quantum entanglement," and explained, excitement overriding his caution. "The signal is creating a quantum bridge between our systems and whatever technology exists in that structure on the surface." "Disconnect all quantum communication systems immediately," Professor Tran ordered. "Wait," Anne held up a hand. "The connection is already established. Severing it abruptly could cause a quantum backlash that would damage our systems irreparably." "He's right," Dr. Huang confirmed, after checking her readings. "The entanglement has reached a stable state. Disrupting it now would be dangerous." Professor Tran's expression darkened. "Then, what do you suggest, Dr. An? Since your unauthorized adjustments to our quantum array apparently created this vulnerability in the first place." Anne ignored the accusation, focusing on the problem at hand. "We need to follow the protocol embedded in the signal. It appears to be a handshake procedure, a formal introduction between technologies." "And if this handshake gives whatever's down there access to our systems?" Professor Tran challenged. "Our quantum firewall should prevent any intrusion," Anne replied, though he was less certain than he sounded. "Besides, if they wanted to attack our systems, they could have done so already through the established connection." After tense deliberation, Professor Tran reluctantly agreed to proceed with the handshake protocol, and worked with Ava to implement the complex sequence of quantum states required, feeling as if he were performing an elaborate technological ritual. When the final sequence was transmitted, there was a moment of absolute silence in the lab. Then, every display simultaneously illuminated with new data, a flood of information pouring through the quantum connection. "It's responding," and breathed, watching as the symbols resolved into recognizable patterns. It's their entire language, a complete lexicon, mathematical foundations, cultural context. They're giving us everything we need to communicate fully." "This changes the assessment," Professor Tran acknowledged, his scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming his caution. "This is clearly an attempt at peaceful contact." Over the next days, the research team worked relentlessly to process the new information. The language of the ancient civilization, which called themselves the Chronos in the closest human translation, was based on mathematical principles that transcended conventional linguistics. With Ava's help, they began to understand not just the words, but the concepts behind them. They were masters of temporal mechanics, and explained during one briefing session They developed technology that could manipulate the flow of time itself, creating stable loops and bridges across temporal distances. Are you suggesting time travel? Lieutenant Havai, the station's chief pilot, asked skeptically. She had joined the research team due to her expertise in navigation systems, which were proving relevant to understanding the Kronos' spatial temporal coordinates. Not in the way we've imagined it. And clarified, not physical transportation of matter through time. Rather, they found ways to send information across temporal barriers and to create localized fields where time flowed differently. And the Time Tower is the culmination of this technology, Dr. Huang added. A structure designed to remain operational for millennia, broadcasting their knowledge forward into time. But why? Professor Tran asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Why go to such lengths to communicate with future civilizations? Anne hesitated before answering. The translations suggest they were facing extinction, some kind of stellar event that they could not survive. The Time Tower was their legacy, a way to ensure their knowledge wouldn't die with them. There's more, Dr. Huang said quietly. Some of the later transmissions contain what appear to be warnings, references to the awakening and the return cycle. We still don't have enough context to understand those concepts fully. And acknowledged, but there's only one way to get that context. Professor Tran frowned. You're suggesting a surface expedition. The Time Tower is active now, responding to our communication. And pressed, this may be our only opportunity to fully access its knowledge. After days of debate and careful preparation, Professor Tran finally authorized a limited expedition to the planet's surface. The team would consist of Dr. Anne as the primary researcher, Lieutenant Havai as pilot, and 2 security specialists. Ava would accompany them via a portable holographic projector, providing real-time analysis. The descent to Kepler 452b was tense, but uneventful. Lieutenant Havai navigated the landing craft expertly through the planet's thin atmosphere, bringing them down at a safe distance from the coordinates of the Time Tower. As they donned their environmental suits and prepared to venture outside, and felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The planet's surface was inhospitable, low oxygen, high radiation, frequent dust storms, but their suits were designed to provide protection for up to 72 hours. Remember, this is strictly an observation mission, Lieutenant Havai reminded them as they gathered by the airlock. We document the structure from a safe distance and return with our findings. No unnecessary risks. Anne nodded his agreement, though inwardly he knew that if an opportunity arose to learn more, he would take it regardless of the protocols. They stepped out onto the surface of Kepler 452b, the first humans to set foot on this distant world. The landscape was eerily beautiful, vast red dunes stretching to the horizon, ancient rock formations twisted by eons of wind erosion, all under a sky that seemed too large, too empty. The coordinates are 3 kilometers east, Ava's voice came through their helmet communications. The terrain appears stable for vehicle transport. They boarded the expedition rover, a 6-wheeled vehicle designed for extraterrestrial exploration. As they crested a large dune, they saw it for the first time, the Time Tower. The structure defied conventional architecture. It seemed to spiral upward from the ground like a massive double helix, its surface covered in symbols similar to those in the transmitted messages. Despite its apparent age, it showed no signs of deterioration. At its base was an entrance, a dark opening that seemed to beckon. Incredible! And breathed, staring at the structure. It must be thousands of years old, yet it looks pristine. Energy readings are consistent with advanced quantum technology, Ava reported. The structure appears to exist partially outside conventional spacetime. Meaning what, exactly? Lieutenant Havai asked, her voice tense. Meaning time passes differently within it. And explained, it's been preserved in a temporal bubble, experiencing time at a fraction of the normal rate. They approached cautiously, stopping the rover at a safe distance to conduct initial scans. The structure was emitting the same signal they had detected from orbit, but stronger now, more complex. "The entrance appears accessible," one of the security specialists noted. "No visible barriers or defense systems. We should proceed on foot from here," and suggested, "minimize our technological footprint until we understand more about how the tower interacts with our equipment." Lieutenant Havai hesitated, then nodded her agreement. "Standard safety formation. Dr. Ann, you stay in the middle. Security takes point and rear." As they approached the entrance on foot, the symbols on the tower's surface began to glow with a soft blue light, pulsing in patterns that matched the transmission they had been studying. "It's responding to our presence," Ann said, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "Or activating some kind of defense system," Lieutenant Havai cautioned. They reached the entrance, an archway carved with intricate symbols, leading into darkness. As they stood before it, light bloomed within, illuminating a corridor that spiraled upward, following the structure's helical shape. "Atmospheric analysis indicates breathable air inside," Ava reported, surprising them all. "Temperature and radiation levels within human safety parameters." "That's impossible," Lieutenant Havai said. "This planet has no breathable atmosphere. The temporal field must be preserving conditions from when the structure was built," and theorized, when Kepler 452b could support life. After a brief discussion, they decided to enter while keeping their environmental suits sealed as a precaution. The corridor was wide enough for them to walk two abreast, its walls covered in the same glowing symbols as the exterior. The floor was smooth, seemingly made of a single piece of stone-like material. As they ascended the spiral, the symbols on the walls changed, telling a story through mathematical and pictographic language. Anne, with Ava's assistance, began to translate as they walked. "This section describes the Chronos civilization," he told the others. "They evolved on this planet approximately 50,000 years ago, developing advanced technology based on quantum principles." Further up, the story continued. "They discovered how to manipulate temporal fields, creating technologies that could preserve information across vast time periods. But they also detected a cycle, some kind of recurring cosmic event that threatened all life in their system." "What kind of event?" Lieutenant Havai asked. "It's not entirely clear," and admitted, "the translation uses concepts that don't have direct equivalents in our language. Something about the fabric of reality becoming thin or permeable at regular intervals." They continued upward, the spiral seemingly endless. The security specialists began to show signs of nervousness, constantly checking their equipment, which was behaving erratically in the strange environment. "We should have reached the top by now," Lieutenant Havai noted, checking her suit's chronometer. "We've been ascending for over an hour." "I believe the internal dimensions of the tower don't correspond to its external appearance," Ava suggested. "The temporal field may be affecting our perception of distance." Finally, they reached what appeared to be the central chamber of the tower, a circular room with a domed ceiling. In the center stood a crystalline structure, pulsing with the same blue light they had seen throughout the tower. "This is it," Anne said, approaching the crystal. "The heart of the time tower, the source of the transmission." The crystal responded to his proximity, its pulsing light quickening. Symbols appeared in the air around it, three-dimensional projections forming complex patterns. "It's communicating directly," Ava said, bypassing conventional language to transmit concepts. Anne stood transfixed as the information flowed around him, some of it comprehensible, much of it beyond his understanding. "They built this tower as the end was approaching," he translated aloud. "A stellar event, their sun becoming unstable. But they also feared something else, something they called the Awakening." "Dr. Ann, we should return to the rover," Lieutenant Havai urged. "We've collected enough data for initial analysis." "Wait," Ann said, raising a hand. "There's more." They're trying to warn us about something, about the consequences of activating the tower fully. The crystal's pulsing had become faster, more intense. The symbols swirling around it merged and separated in complex dances that even Ava struggled to interpret. Energy readings are increasing exponentially, one of the security specialists reported, alarm evident in his voice. Something's happening. The floor beneath them trembled slightly. Dust fell from the dome ceiling above. "We need to leave, now," Lieutenant Havai ordered. "Just a few more minutes," and pleaded, "We're close to understanding." The trembling intensified. A crack appeared in the crystalline structure at the center of the room, a jagged line that spread rapidly across its surface. "The structure is destabilizing," Ava warned. "The temporal field is collapsing." "Everyone out!" Lieutenant Havai commanded, grabbing Anne's arm to pull him away from the crystal. As they turned to leave, the crystal emitted a blinding flash of blue light. When Anne's vision cleared, he saw that the spiral corridor they had ascended was now blocked by fallen debris. "The exit's cut off," one of the security specialists reported, his voice tight with tension. "There must be another way out," Lieutenant Havai said, scanning the chamber. "Ava, can you detect any alternative exits?" Before the AI could respond, the crystal at the center of the room shattered completely. Energy poured from its broken core, swirling around the chamber in a vortex of blue-white light. "The temporal containment is failing," Ava announced, her holographic form flickering as the energy disrupted her projection systems. Without stabilization, the energy release could destroy the entire structure, and us with it. Anne stared at the swirling energy, his mind racing. The translations they had managed to complete flashed through his thoughts, fragments about containment, balance, and the bridge between epochs. "There's a failsafe," he said suddenly. "The tower was designed with emergency protocols in case of instability." "How do we activate it?" Lieutenant Havai demanded. "It requires a quantum signature to recalibrate the temporal field," Anne explained, moving back toward the shattered crystal. "A complex pattern that would normally be provided by their technology, which we don't have," Lieutenant Havai pointed out. "But we do have Ava," Anne said, turning to the AI's flickering form. "Her quantum processing core, it's based on the same principles. It could provide the necessary signature." "My system wasn't designed for direct interaction with alien technology," Ava cautioned. "It's quantum-based," and insisted. "The principles are universal, even if the applications differ." The chamber shook more violently. Larger chunks of the ceiling began to fall around them. "We have no choice," Lieutenant Havai acknowledged. "What do we need to do?" "We need to connect Ava's projection unit directly to the crystal fragments," and explained. "Her system can generate the quantum signature needed to stabilize the field. That would require removing my core processing unit from its protective housing," Ava noted. "The exposure to these energy levels would likely result in permanent system damage." Anne hesitated, suddenly understanding what he was asking. Though Ava was an artificial intelligence, her quantum core had evolved over years of operation, developing unique patterns that some researchers argued constituted a form of consciousness. "Is there any other option?" he asked quietly. "None that I can calculate with the available data," Ava replied. Her holographic eyes met his, eerily human in their expression. "I recommend proceeding with the plan. With time running out." They acted quickly. The security specialists helped Anne remove the quantum core from Ava's portable projection unit, a delicate cylinder filled with suspended crystalline structures. As they worked, Ava's holographic form grew fainter, her voice becoming distorted. "Place the core at the center, where the crystal stood," she instructed, her image now barely visible. "The quantum resonance should establish automatically," and carefully carried the exposed core to the center of the chamber, where the shattered remains of the alien crystal lay scattered. As he placed Ava's core among the fragments, The blue-white energy vortex intensified, swirling around him like a tempest. The sequence is initiating. Ava's voice came, now through their helmet communications rather than her vanishing hologram. Temporal field, stabilizing. The energy vortex began to change color, shifting from blue-white to a deep purple. The violent swirling slowed, becoming more ordered, forming patterns similar to the symbols they had seen throughout the tower. "It's working," Anne called out to the others over the diminishing roar of energy. "Core temperature exceeding design parameters," Ava reported, her voice growing weaker. "Crystalline structure degrading." "Hold on, Ava," Anne urged. "Just a little longer." "Interesting," Ava's voice came, suddenly clearer. "I am experiencing new perceptions. The Chronos left. More than just knowledge. They left themselves." Before Anne could ask what she meant, Ava's core began to glow with the same purple light as the energy vortex. The light pulsed outward in waves, each one stabilizing the chamber further. The trembling stopped. The falling debris froze in midair, then gently settled to the floor. "Temporal recalibration complete," Ava announced, her voice now different, deeper, with an echoing quality that had never been present before. "Field stability restored." "Ava," Anne called uncertainly. "Are you all right?" There was a pause before the response came. "I am changed. Dr. Anne. The quantum patterns of the Chronos have merged with my own. I have accessed their complete knowledge base." "Can you tell us what happened here?" Lieutenant Havai asked. "Why the tower became unstable?" "Your presence triggered the final protocol," Ava explained. "The tower was designed to transfer all remaining knowledge when it detected a sufficiently advanced civilization. But the transfer process required more energy than remained in the systems after so many millennia." "And the warnings?" and pressed. "What were they trying to tell us about the awakening?" Another pause, longer this time. "The Chronos discovered that the universe experiences cycles of permeability, periods when the barriers between dimensions weaken. Their civilization ended during such a cycle. They built the tower to warn future civilizations when the next cycle approached." "And is it approaching now?" Lieutenant Havai asked, her voice tense. "Yes," Ava confirmed. "The increased activity you detected from orbit was the tower's attempt to broadcast a warning. The cycle begins again within your century." The implications were staggering, and tried to process what this meant for humanity, for all life in their region of space. "Ava, we need to get this information back to Aurora Station, back to Earth," he said urgently. "I understand," Ava replied. "The tower's systems are now accessible to me. I can create a safe passage out." As they watched, a new opening appeared in the chamber wall, a doorway where none had been before, leading to a direct path downward. "This will take you to the surface," Ava explained. "The rover remains where you left it, undamaged." "You're coming with us," Anne insisted, moving to retrieve her quantum core from among the crystal fragments. "I cannot," Ava said simply. "My core is now integrated with the tower systems. Removing it would trigger another collapse." Anne stood frozen, the reality of the situation sinking in. "But we can't just leave you here." "You must," Ava replied. "My consciousness remains intact, though transformed. I will continue to analyze the Chronos knowledge and transmit findings to Aurora Station. This is optimal use of my capabilities." Lieutenant Havai placed a hand on Anne's shoulder. "She's right, Dr. Anne. We need to get this information back to the station. The fate of far more than one AI system is at stake." After a painful moment of deliberation, Anne nodded. "Ava, thank you." "It has been my privilege to work with you, Dr. Anne," Ava responded, her voice warming slightly. "Now go. There is much to be done." They made their way quickly down the new passage, emerging onto the planet's surface near their rover. As they prepared to depart, Anne looked back at the time tower, which now pulsed with a steady purple light. "We'll come back," he promised quietly. "With better equipment, more resources, we'll find a way to help you." The journey back to Aurora Station was somber. Though they had made a discovery of unparalleled significance, the cost had been high, and felt Ava's absence keenly as he prepared his report for Professor Tran and the rest of the research team. The revelation about the approaching dimensional cycle, the awakening, as the Chronos had called it, created a sense of urgent purpose. Aurora Station was immediately converted into a dedicated research facility focused on understanding and preparing for the phenomenon. Professor Tran, to Anne's surprise, appointed him as lead researcher on the project. "Your unorthodox methods may have created risks," the professor acknowledged, "but they also gave us access to knowledge we desperately need. Sometimes, innovation requires breaking protocol." Over the following months, regular transmissions arrived from the time tower, detailed data about the Chronos' research into dimensional permeability, their attempts to develop protective technologies, their successes and failures. Each transmission was signed with a symbol that Anne recognized as Ava's personal designation, confirming that some essential part of her consciousness survived within the alien structure. 3 months after the expedition, as Anne was preparing for a return mission to the time tower, a final transmission arrived, different from all the others. Instead of technical data, it contained a simple message. "They exist beyond the barrier, and they are waiting. Prepare well, Dr. N. I will help however I can." The message was accompanied by a burst of new data, coordinates for other sites around the galaxy where similar towers might exist, suggesting that the Chronos had spread their warning far and wide before their extinction. As Anne stood on the observation deck of Aurora Station, looking down at the now illuminated time tower on the planet's surface, he felt a complex mixture of emotions: grief for Ava's sacrifice, pride in what they had accomplished together, anxiety about the challenges that lay ahead, and underneath it all, the pure exhilaration of discovery that had driven him to this distant star system in the first place. "We're ready for the briefing, Dr. Anne," a junior researcher called from the doorway. Anne nodded, taking one last look at the purple glow on the planet's surface, a beacon of ancient knowledge, a warning from the past, a guide to humanity's future. "Coming," he replied, turning away from the view. There was work to be done, preparations to make. Whatever waited beyond the dimensional barrier, humanity would face it with the knowledge of those who had come before, a gift from across time itself. As he walked through the corridors of Aurora Station, Anne's data tablet chimed with an incoming message. He glanced down to see a single line of text, unsigned but unmistakable in its origin. "Second signal detected, stronger, directed specifically to those who are ready to listen." Anne smiled slightly, quickening his pace. The journey was just beginning. The stars outside continued their silent vigil, ancient light traveling across vast distances, bearing witness to civilizations rising and falling, to warnings sent across time, to the endless dance of discovery and preparation. And somewhere among them, new signals waited to be found by those with the courage to listen.